was tossed by moonlight all across France and half of Europe. "Up, boys, up! No pause, no rest! Run!" Bong! Help! They ran. They began to fall with each step, but again and again and again steps came in place and saved them and ran them taller, so the shadow of the spires loomed tall across rivers and fields to snuff the last witch-fires at crossroads. Crones, hags, wise men, demon lovers, 1,000 miles off, snuffed like candles, whiffed to smoke, wailed and sank to hide as the church leaned, tilted across the heavens. So even as the Romans cut down druid trees and chopped their god of the dead to fall, we now, with this church, boys, cast such a shadow as knocks all witches off their stilts, and puts seedy sorcerers and trite magicians to heel. No more small witch-fires, only this great lit candle, Notre Dame, presto. The boys laughed with delight, for the last step fell in place. They had reached the top, gasping. Notre Dame Cathedral was finished and built. Bong! The last soft hour was struck. The great bronze bell shuddered, and hung empty. The boys leaned to peer into its cavernous mouth. There was no clapper inside shaped like Pipkin. "Pipkin," they whispered. "Kin," echoed the bell in a small echo. "He's here somewhere. Up there in the air. Meet him's what he promised, and Pipkin falls back on no promises," said Mound Shroud. "Look about, boys. Fine handiwork, eh? Centuries of toil done in a fast gallop and sneeze, right? But something beside Pipkin's missing. What? Glance up. Scan round, eh?" The boys peered. They puzzled. Don't the place look awful plain, boys? Awful untouched and unornamented? "Gargoyles!" Everyone turned to look at Wally Babb, who was dressed as a gargoyle for Halloween. His face fairly beamed with revelation. "Gargoyles! The place has got no gargoyles!" "Gargoyles," Mound Shroud uttered and ululated and beautifully ribboned the word with his lizardy tongue. "Gargoyles. Shall we put them on, boys?" "How?" "Why, I should think we could whistle them in place. Whistle for demons, boys. Whistle for fiends. Give a high, great, tootling blow for beasties and ferocious fanged loomers of the dark." Wally Babb sucked in a great breath. "Here's mine," he whistled. All whistled. And the gargoyles? They came running. Chapter 16. The unemployed of all midnight Europe shivered in their stone sleep and came awake, which is to say that all the old beasts, all the old tales, all the old nightmares, all the old unused demons put by, and witches left in the lurch, quaked at the call, reared at the whistle, trembled at the summons, and in dust devils of propulsion skimmed down the roads, flitted skies, buckshot through shaken trees, forded streams, swam rivers, pierced clouds, and arrived, which is still to say that all the dead statues and idols and semigods and demigods of Europe, lying like a dreadful snow all about, abandoned, in ruins, gave a blink, and start, and came as salamanders on the road, or bats in skies, or dingoes in the brush. They flew, they galloped, they skittered. To the general excitement and amazement and much babbling shout from the fringe of boys leaning out, Mound Shroud leaning with them as the mobs of strange beasts came from north, south, east, west, to panic at the gates and wait for whistles. "Shall we drop white-hot boiling lead down on them?" The boys saw Mound Shroud's smile. "Heck no," said Tom. "Hunchback already did that years ago." "Well then, no burning lava. So shall we whistle them up?" They all whistled. and, obedient to summons, the mobs, the flocks, the prides, the crush, the collection, the raving flux of monsters, beasts, vices rampant, virtues gone sour, discarded saints, misguided prides, hollow pomps oozed, slid, succored, pelted, ran bold and right up the sides of Notre Dame. In a flood tide of nightmare, in a tidal wave of outcry and shamble, they inundated the cathedral to crust themselves on every pinion and upthrust stone. So here ran pigs, and there climbed Satan's goats, and yet another wall knew devils, which recarved themselves along the way, dropped horns and grew new ones, shaved beards to sprout tendril earthworm mustaches. Sometimes a swarm of only masks and faces scuttled up the walls, and took the buttress heights, carried by an army of crayfish and wobbly, crotchety lobsters. Here came the heads of gorillas, full of sin and teeth. There came men's heads with sausages in their mouths. Beyond danced the mask of a fool, upheld by a spider that knew ballet. So much was going on that Tom said, "My gosh, so much is going on." "And more to come, there," said Moundshroud. For now that Notre Dame was infested with various beasts and spidering leers and gloms and masks, why, here came dragons chasing children and whales swallowing Jonahs and chariots chock full of skulls and bones, acrobats and tumblers, yanked out of shape by demi-demons, limped and fell in strange postures to freeze on the roof, all accompanied by pigs with harps, and sows with piccolos, and dogs playing bagpipes, so the music itself helped charm and pull new mobs of grotesques up the walls, to be trapped and caught forever in sockets of stone. Here an ape plucked a lyre, there floundered a woman with a fish's tail. Now a sphinx flew out of the night, shed its wings, and became woman and lion half and half, settled to snooze away the centuries in the shadow and sound of high bells. "Why, what are those?" cried Tom. Moundshroud, leaning over, gave a snort. "Why, those are sins, boys, and nondescripts. There crawls the worm of conscience." They looked to see it crawl. It crawled very fine. "Now," whispered Moundshroud softly, "settle, slumber, sleep." And the flocks of strange creatures turned about 3 times like evil dogs and lay down. All beasts took root. All grimaces froze to stone. All cries faded. The moon shadowed and lit the gargoyles of Notre Dame. "Does it make sense, Tom?" "Sure. All the old gods, all the old dreams, all the old nightmares, all the old ideas with nothing to do, out of work. We gave them work. We called them here." "And here they will remain for centuries, right?" "Right." They looked down over the rim. There was a mob of beasts on the east battlement, a crowd of sins on the west, a surge of nightmares on the south, and a fine scuttle of unnamed vices and ill-kept virtues to the north. "I," said Tom, proud of this night's work, "wouldn't mind living here." The wind crooned in the mouths of the beasts. Their fangs hissed and whistled. "Much thanks." Chapter 17. "Jehoshaphat," said Tom Skelton on the parapet. "We whistled all the stone griffins and demons here. Now Pipkin's lost again. I was thinking, why can't we whistle him?" Moundshroud laughed so his cape boomed on the night wind and his dry bones jangled inside his skin. "Boys, look around. He's still here." "Where?" "Here," mourned a small, faraway voice. The boys crickled their spines looking over the parapet, cracked their necks staring up. "Look and find, lads. Hide and seek." And even in seeking they could not help but enjoy once more the turbulent slates of the cathedral, all fringed with horrors and deliciously ugly with trapped beasts. Where was Pipkin among all those dark sea creatures with gills gaped open like mouths for an eternal gasp and sigh? Where among all those lovely chiseled nightmares cut from the gallstones of night-lurks and monsters cracked out of old earthquakes, vomited up from mad volcanoes which cooled themselves to frights and deliriums? "Here," wailed a far, small, familiar voice again, and way down on a ledge, halfway to the earth, the boys, squinting, thought they saw one small, round, beautiful angel devil face with a familiar eye, a familiar nose, a friendly and familiar mouth. "Pipkin!" Shouting, they ran down stairways along dark corridors until they reached a ledge. Far out there on the windy air, above a very narrow walkway indeed, was that small face, lovely among so much ugliness. Tom went first, not looking down, spread-eagling himself. Ralph followed. The rest inched along in a line. "Watch out, Tom. Don't fall." "I'm not falling. Here's Pip." And there he was, standing in a line directly under the out-thrust stone mask, the bust, the head of a gargoyle. They looked up at that mighty fine profile, that great nub nose, that unbearded cheek, that fuzzy cap of marbled hair. "Pipkin." "Pip, for what you doing here?" called Tom. Pip said nothing. His mouth was cut stone. It's just rock," said Ralph. "Just a gargoyle carved here a long time ago. Looks like Pipkin." "No, I heard him call." "But how—" And then the wind gave them the answer. It blew around the high corners of Notre Dame. It fluted in the ears and piped out the gaping mouths of the gargoyles. "Ah," whispered Pipkin's voice. The hair stood up on the backs of their necks. "Ooh," murmured the stone mouth. "Listen, there it is," said Ralph excitedly. "Shut up," cried Tom. "Pip, next time the wind blows, tell us. How do we help? What got you here? How do we get you down?" Silence. The boys clung to the rock cliff face of the great cathedral. Then another swoop of wind sucked by, drew their breaths, and whistled in the carved stone boy's teeth. "One," said Pip's voice. "Question," whispered Pip's voice again after a pause. Silence. More wind. "Atta." The boys waited. "Time." "One question at a time," translated Tom. The boys hooted with laughter. That was Pip, all right. "Okay." Tom gathered his spit. "What are you doing up here?" The wind blew sadly, and the voice spoke as from deep in an old well. "Been so many places in just a few hours." The boys waited, grinding their teeth. "Speak up, Pipkin!" The wind came back to mourn in the open stone mouth. But the wind had died. It began to rain, and this was best of all, for the raindrops ran cold in Pipkin's stone ears and out along his nose and fountained from his marble mouth, so that he began to utter syllables in liquid tongues with clear, cold rainwater words. "Hey, this is better." He spouted mist. He sprayed quick rain. "You should have been where I've been. Gosh, I was buried for a mummy. I was trapped in a dog." "We guessed that was you, Pipkin." "And now here," said the rain in the ear, the rain in the nose, the rain in the clear, dripping marble mouth. "Gosh, golly, funny, strange inside this rock with all these devils and demons for pals, and 10 minutes from now who knows where I'll be, higher up or buried deep." "Where, Pipkin?" The boys jostled. The rain squalled and beat them so they almost tilted and fell off the ledge. "Are you dead, Pipkin?" "No, not yet," said the cold rain in his mouth. "Part of me in a hospital a long way off home.